a somewhat serious match to go. I mean, obviously my
it's always good to talk about the game with the desk.
Yeah, we really get to cover a lot of the stuff that just wasn't addressed beforehand, and tease out some of the really interesting narratives, unlike the fact that we're in different boxes. But here's a match, Matt, between two teams that are actually find themselves a little bit more evenly placed, at least as far as the pundits are concerned at the moment, right? The Boston Uprising started this stage, this Countdown Cup Qualifiers, in quite impressive fashion, right? They brought in like an Orisa-based composition. They looked very comfortable. We heard from Punk, and he had definitely some choice words to share. He was huge in that series on the Diva especially.
And I think just these matches, specifically today, they hold such big implications for the entire season. I know these are teams that are kind of like racing towards that top 3. I know with Atlanta beating Houston, that is a close race. Like the 8-10 marker in terms of league points is so close that the Boston Uprising, they come in 7-6. The Shocket with 9 wins. Like, this is a huge opportunity for Boston, a team that looks like they're potentially on the rise, to maybe make an outside chance at getting that top 3 in NA. Yep. One of these teams, like 8 points or something like that, finishes this tournament, let's say, with 10 wins, and makes it to the Countdown Cup Hawaii and earns an extra league point there, they could find themselves in the top 3, getting a bye to the overall playoffs. Like, that is massive for NA.
Yeah, I mean, and San Francisco, on the other hand, they're hoping for a big result against the Dallas Fuel yesterday, right? They pull up just a little bit short, and we can sort of tease out some of the weaknesses that were exposed a little bit from them, especially in the later part of the series, especially when Dallas frankly served them up a map win on Hanamura here. But look, we saw Arns play a little bit more Tracer. He busted out the Widowmaker on occasion. Nero's been showing us plenty of that Farah play. We've seen plenty of interchangeability, right? Glista, who I think is like... sitting like 4th or 5th on some key Tracer stats, got moved in later in the series.
Well, that's what I was just about to mention. This is very interesting. Glister comes in for Game 5 yesterday on Lijiang Tower.
Right.
We kick off here Lijiang Tower for this series, and Ons is in. So clearly it was not like a map thing. Maybe they thought that Glister could come in and play like a Tracer that could really kind of turn the tides in that 5th and final game. But you still have the Violet Twilight support line. I think that was a plus yesterday. You see the flexibility between those two players that know Lucio in the pool. You can play them in so many different roles. And then Smurf in terms of tank. We'll take a look over at the Boston Uprising starting lineup. Punk in terms of the off tank, right? A lot of talk was about Gabolshi when they brought him in. He started to play at the beginning, but then we've seen more and more Punk. And I think it just speaks to something we were talking about earlier in the season. Like, Punk was not really an issue for this team. Like, his play was quite well. Faith and Youngbong look great in terms of supports. The one thing different is they don't have Color Hex in the starting lineup today. They'll start things off with Valentine and 937.
And I think this is a meta where Myunbong again is positioned to be a really high impact player on this team, right? He's ranked 22nd out of 40 right now as far as IBM Watson's concerned in terms of supports. But in terms of some individual stats, he's 2nd in Biotic Grenade kills and 2nd in offensive assists in the entire league on that honor. So he is definitely, tilts towards the more aggressive style of Ana play here. And I don't know how that works out, when we have sort of stand one, maybe play more Orisa and some of the compositions more bunkerified. But, I mean, incredibly talented flex support player. And I think Faith is one of the best Brigitte players in the league, right? There's a few names you can think of, like Dridro as well, guys like him. But Faith is insane on that role.
You also have to remember, the power rankings by IBM Watson takes into consideration, wins and losses, right? And this Boston Uprising team was, dreadful in the Melee qualifiers. 1-3, they only win 4 maps the entire of the Melee qualifiers. So a lot of these players' individual rankings are still hurt by the fact that they played so poorly during that. I think if you kind of excluded that Melee, they probably rank much higher as they've been a team that's kind of just been progressively getting better as the season has gone on.
Needless to say, this is absolutely a match that San Francisco have to win. They came into this week sitting 3rd, I think, in Western rankings, and, well and truly in like the auto into playoff zone. The loss to Dallas definitely casts a little bit of doubt over that, but they're still at 9-4. You think of some of their potential rivals, right? So like the Atlanta Reign, they're really starting to nip at their heels. I think they're 9-5 now. Yeah, they're 9-5 now themselves. Yep. Teams like Boston can very quickly find themselves again in that 9-5 sort of bracket. So San Francisco cannot afford to take their foot off the gas right now, but they're going up against a really dangerous foe, a Boston Uprising who seem right at home here in the Countdown Cup's hero pools.
Now, specifically when you talk about the overall season playoff push, one of those teams, like you mentioned, that's right on the Shock's tail in terms of having that guaranteed spot from the Western region. They end up going to Hawaii and earn a elite point or two, and they're in, right? And you're in a spot with the Shock where now you're fighting to just get into the playoffs. Where they have had a good regular season, but you can start to see now that not making it to Hawaii for an opportunity for those extra points have really hurt them. So it'll be the Shock come out on a Wrecking Ball composition, same as the Boston Uprising. Boston, though, will play the Sombra Tracer dive with the Zenyatta in play.
Worth bearing in mind, first time these two teams are taking each other's measure so far in the 2021 season. And a good start here for the Shock. Arns has locked the legs and he's been able to find Faith as the Uprising choose to group up inside that left side room, which makes him susceptible to Helix Rocket and also to the Wrecking Ball play. Stan 1 also trying to show what he's made of. Nero really has to get away from Punk. Punk was instrumental for Boston in shutting down airborne threats in their previous match.
Yeah, and it's going to be the Boston Uprising get onto the point here first. Is Nero just trying to get in and get a touch, but it'll be Boston who's able to actually get control as Smurf has to get off it because he's hacked. Obviously can't stand on the point much longer when he has no option to use any of his abilities. So Boston, although it's a little bit of a dirty fight at the start, they'll get control of the point first. Choi will get a mic back, but they're going to be walking right into this EMP.
Boston here have a decent understanding of where the Shock are looking to come from now. Cursor, a look over towards White Room, sees most of San Francisco group there, and that's good for M37. A nice, closely packed team. Shock together like sardines means this EMP. Easy enough to hit, but okay, he has to go for it now. He gets detected. He's able to catch 4 with that one, crucially. And Twilight is one of them that is affected. So, no biotic grenade, no burst healing, really. And it's an easy cleanup for Boston, but they spend into it.
Yeah, I mean, they use the minefield and they end up using EMP there. Obviously, 2 pretty key ultimates as Punk putting a lot of pressure up on Nero in the skies. Nero's doing a nice job just putting down damage. It's just Boston has just kind of pushed through, found targets and not really kind of had to deal with the Pharah that much. The damage from the Pharah from San Francisco hasn't been followed up on yet.
Yeah, the other half of that, equation is Arns, right? Completing those kills as Soldier, or at least getting involved in the chip damage fights. But the Transcendence is very timely here from Myeongbong, with Twilight dying after he deploys the nano boost. There's no chance to shut down the Transcendence with a biotic grenade. And this is bad for San Francisco. They are falling further and further behind. Nero gets caught on his own with a Discord Orb. And, a cheeky attempt at a Resurrect could have been there for Violet, but he's better off giving it up.
Well, he can't actually, because Violet actually gets hacked during that, so no opportunity to get the hack off. He's lucky to even just get back on the map. The Shock end up flipping the point here, and that'll be an EMP for I'm37 trying to flip the point back to Boston.
Stan 1 gonna go back and grab the Mega Health Pack and return to the fight. Now the barrage for Nero has to be big, and getting rid of Punk is pretty decent value, but there's got to be more here. Nero keeps the point contested by popping back into the window now, and Faith has to rally because of the damage coming in from the rockets. Good cleanup from I'm37 now, and Smurf can only stall this point out a little longer. The Discord Orb from Myeongbong, such a menace here.
And if you're San Francisco, when you kind of look at the damage dealers that are in the game, can you even kind of match this type of composition? We've seen Ons in the past, he can play the Tracer
Sombra
or the Sombra,
well.
Right? We see mostly the Sombra. It's really like Nero, right? If you have him play the Tracer, can he kind of live up to the kind of billing of some of the better Tracers in the league? You may have to put Glycerin in some of these scenarios if you want to run this.
Well, that's the question. Nero's Tracer, can it make the difference here? Valentine is looking right at home right now. Okay, Minefield's going to make it very hard for the Shock to get to the point, and I'm37 goes forward. He gets the EMP at the right timing. He trades, though. Nero's able to pick him up just after he deploys that ultimate, but it's all Boston all the time right now. Wrecking Ball onto the point here as Smurf is going to try and keep things going. He gets a nano boost as well. So the Uprising give him a wide berth. They respect the damage increase the ball now has, but then they just come straight back in, and that's a cringe on the face of Smurf. He realizes it was wishful thinking in the first place. What a start for the Uprising.
Well, they use the Nano and Tac Visor at the same time, and Minefield all on that side of the point, and Boston just sits on the other side of the pillar. There's no reason for them to go back around and engage. They have control of the point. So all those ultimates there for the Shock go for nothing. And they just come back with a Transcendence from Myungbong and push right on through and end up taking the point. So Boston looks really good, kind of picking up where they left off.
I'm 37 getting a ton of value that last round. Oh, that's over the edge. That's, oh man. He almost, in fairness, did the same to Smurf. Hacked him, and Stan 1 almost knocked him off the edge. I'm 37 also getting a disproportionate number of final blows on the Sombra in that round, completing a lot of the kills that Valentine was setting up.
So
He's looking dangerous.
The Shock went with this yesterday when we watched them. They went to the Widowmaker at times, where this point's not exactly great for the Wrecking Ball. That Boston's going to run double hit scan, 76 and McCree. So far, it's not working out. You know, On's not able to find anything in terms of like line of sight. But Nero and Violet doing the work on the point.
Yeah, they can't stay on this. It's such a good matchup for Arns on the Widowmaker on a map that you otherwise wouldn't probably see much of him played. So I'm 37 and Valentine decide no, back to the double flanker. The Tracer Sombra play was very good last round. And San Francisco eventually might be put in a position where Arns feels a lot less safe than he did before.
It's a lot easier of a dive target now, right, on the Widowmaker, as opposed to the 76. Obviously, 76 with the sprint being able to kind of get out of situations.
Punk again goes for a drive-by. Nero, though, doesn't want any of it. He's close to a barrage already, so a lot of good chip damage from him early in this round. We're looking for, I mean, we really are looking for M37 to find a crucial hack here, or Valentine to really punish. Something has to happen here for the Boston Uprising. Nero is pretty safe, and Punk's not being able to access him. All right, so it's Stan 1 getting a knockoff kill on Violet. That's pretty massive as far as opening up the fight goes, and Nero gets chased by Punk. He waits, got patience from the D.Va player. Lovely take from the Uprising.
And Punk has played so good thus far. I know right there, we saw a little bit of a clip of it from Nero's POV, but Punk turning around backwards, using the defense matrix to protect Myungbong as he's trying to walk towards the point, and then just being able to track the Pharah in the sky as the Shock. You know, they now make a compositional change as well. They'll go to the McCree with the Torbjorn and keep the Iris in the mix, so a very slow composition here for San Francisco, but they're able to get a pick early.
Good start for San Francisco now. The ever-present threat, the Sombra in the back line, being removed from the equation for the time being. A Valentine's Pulse Bomb being removed means that the flankers for the Uprising have a huge job to do right now. Valentine trying to attack some of Troy Gobin's defense matrix there, but Stan 1 gets absolutely blown up. I'm37 pushes very aggressively here with the EMP and catches a lot of players, but the Uprising can't filter through the short, small doorway quickly enough. They get rid of Twilight, but the Shock is still working with 5. Nero trades for Faith, and that's a hack on Troy Gobin, so he just has to straight up run away. But guess who's there? Yes, Stan 1's back in the fray. A gigantic pile driver on an already struggling San Francisco. Shock seals the deal.
Oh, and Stan 1 goes in to contest and barely gets the minefield off. And the minefield kind of pushes the Shock to the back of the point, and Boston's able to run on in. They have the rally. The supercharge is used by Smurf, but it's a big EMP from Mine 37 that allows them to just push through that and use the rally to just put pressure on the back of the point and clear San Francisco out.
Pulse Bomb here is important. Turret already trained on Valentine. He's not able to find anything there. Punk desuited. Of course, Molten Core going to make it pretty hard for him to touch the point right now. He's lost his mech in his life. So San Francisco looking pretty comfortable. I don't even know if they had to use Immortality Field there. It's unclear what the response to the Pulse Bomb was. There was no kill of the Immortality Field on the feed, so it's unclear. Either way, Amp Matrix here for Violet. Also Rally for Twilight. This is the Shocker in a comfortable spot now. The Uprising have to get a ton done with this Transcendent EMP.
Yeah, you're trying to play around the, you know, an offensive Transcendence, right? Push on through, maybe you get a big EMP. It'll be a self-destruct that launches in first at the start of fight. That'll deal with the Torb turret.
EMP thrown out there. All of San Francisco affected, but it's going to be Faith going down to the self-destruct. Okay, Amplification Matrix thrown up in the main atrium here, and Troy Gobin's just trying to protect his teammates for now. They've lost Smurf, so he really needs to step up and do a lot of the damage mitigation. Doing his best, but it's not enough. Myungbong still finds a way through the lattice and takes Arns down. Another one for Myungbong here. He is a problem for sure. He's playing on the front line right now because he wants it more. The Uprising trying to filter through. Valentine unsuccessful in his backline foray. The turret managed to sniff him out. And Nero finds yet another one. This time it's Myungbong, ever the aggressor. He finally falls. And the San Francisco Shock evening up here on Night Markets.
Yeah, when Boston tries to push on in, Choyobin, actually, when the EMP, right before it comes out, he actually launches a defensive self-destruct, pretty much just launching it right on top of the rest of the shock. And he connects with one player, but it also deters the Boston Uprising from being able to push on through and get on the point, which is exactly the type of action they were playing for at that time. So really nice self-destruct there from Choi. He's the shock battle back with a pretty defensive comp there with the Torbjorn and the McCree in the mix.
We got to see Valentine's POV a few times. It was pretty clear that it was difficult for him to get much done there. Now this happened. Oh, the roof. Oh, I see this because there's some snapping that occurs with power driver there, right? Usually you can get back on the ledge. Asking famed ball player Matt Morello, of course.
Yeah, no, I look. My wrecking ball is it's not my go-to, I would say.
Gotcha. More of a reserve choice, you know.
Yeah, it's more of a reserve choice, you know, just to get some priority passes. Some DPS.
Oh, like every other person is.
Yeah, throw some loud music on, play wrecking ball, you know.
Yes, he's ranked, chat. I'm 37 on the Hangzhou here. All right, well, this Hangzhou pressure already being felt. I think Smurf's first barrier gets blown up, but this little podium position's quite nice for the Shock. It gives them pretty good sight lines for their own Hangzhou, which is Arns, who almost gets caught in a halt. He's playing a little far away from the rest of his team. Let's see if that positioning pays off. It's aggressive for sure. Amplification Matrix already built up here. Twilight got it early, but he got an arrow between his eyes as well. The trade is there, though. Faith, again, removed pretty early on in the fight. And I'm 37 trying to do his darndest here. He's got good shield pressure, but when it comes to harassing Nero, he may be lacking.
It just, can you get an angle with this far to make enough impact as Valentine connects it 2 with attack visor. Nice shot from Onsto coming on in from the side. As the Shock somehow able to turn this, it looked like Boston was going to be able to hold on to the point for a while there. They ended up using their own amp matrix towards the end of that fight. So it looks like Boston wants to come back in and fight this pretty aggressively, but I think that's going to be what you're going to have to look at. Can Nero stay alive on the far, take these angles that prevent Valentine from just kind of plucking him out of the sky and also getting the chip damage necessary?
Yeah, the Uprising try and do a bunch of different things with that composition.
Oh, okay.
Do they go back to Tracer Sombra here? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the Shock don't have the Torbjorn. They don't have like the really hostile elements against that double flanker setup. But you hope I'm37 can build an EMP pretty quick, Matt.
And how do they access this platform safely? Like you mentioned, the Shock kind of playing on that back platform here. You kind of have the Pharah looking over everybody. Can you access this? That's going to be a conk that forces a translocate right away.
I mean, there's a translocate and a recall. So both of the aggressive elements there of the Uprising had to pull the plug on that whole escapade.
Way downtown there with that rocket barrage. I mean,
we've seen some this weekend.
As a reinforce would say, that's from the logo. Like Steph Curry range.
Right. Choyobin hit with the pile driver there briefly. His eyes, though, were only for his backline. Great awareness there. Straight to Nero, who's hit with the Discord Orb. Yumbong would have been a problem for him, but that unfortunately leaves Arns unprotected. Damned if you do, and if you don't against a team like Boston, I suppose. Faith again drops early in this fight. It's a tough life out there for the Brig against the Pharah, but it's looking pretty good after Punk sets that self-destruct up nicely, catches Twilight out. And the Uprising had to win that fight there. They're back in control, but they need to maintain it now.
And the Shock, they go back to the competition that we just saw them run that worked out quite well. With the Risa, the Torbjorn, the McCree, now Twilight playing the Brigitte. It's just, I feel like this point may be a little bit harder for them to break through, right? There's not as much of like a hard choke here.
See how they deal with stand 1, especially here? I mean, big stun we just saw there. That was a flashbang on a more than one. Valentine left a gift there for Arns. And he walked straight over it, so that'll be probably the fight over already for San Francisco. They've got a bit of time to work with them. McCree is important to them here. I mean, an EMP would make things much worse. The power driver, definitely not pleasant. Most of the Shock can get away from it, but Choyobin was not nearly as lucky. The immortality shield being removed means that's a dead diva.
You can just see how Boston playing right now with control of the point, how much better of a point, map this is for Wrecking Ball being in control of the objective, right? On the last one, it was very difficult for them to make anything happen. I mean, you see all the different routes that you can use with the Wrecking Ball, the Sombra here, that make it very difficult for the Shock to continue to run this. This will be a supercharger from the Shock. Just trying to clear some space and maybe trying to set up some real estate on the point.
Right, Bongo's down already. EMP comes out here on a 3. The Immortality Field is still going to be in play, and so is the Transcendence from Myeongbong. He brings that one in, and the Uprising use Transcendence just to get aggressive behind. It allows them to take position without getting blown up instantly. Nero gonna have to supercharge himself there in the backline because Stand 1 is not leaving. Here's the Molten Core to try and punish those tanks that are so desperately trying to harry the backline, and they've gotten rid of 37 here. Self-destruct over the top, and Twilight's rally is really gonna help things for the Shock now. Another big pulse bomb, but it's gonna be shut down. Twilight's able to deal with Valentine, and that was the Immortality Field. Somehow Violet had the nerve to hold on to that key cooldown for as long as he did, and that's what lets the Shock deal with the bomb that was well placed. In fairness, it's 87 to 99.
And I think if Stand 1's pile driver comes a little bit earlier, when Punk's bomb comes in, they probably get like 1 or 2 kills off of that. The placement was good. They just needed a little bit of a knock-up to put players within the line of sight. As Stand 1 trying to get out, barely staying alive here.
I mean, the Shock defended their turret like it was one of their own. You'd love to see that. Oh my! What a shot from Ours in midair. Valentine didn't know what hit him. The amplification matrix, meaning that the body shot was enough to be lethal. Punk has to quickly turn tail and get away, but I don't think Faith is going to be as fortunate. He's already out of the picture. Arance, he can taste the blood. He's going for more. Punk desuited and taken down now, and that'll be that. Map number 1 goes to the Shock.
And they look really good when they're able to fall back on these compositions with the Torbjorn and the McCree. I still think we need to see them, though, pull out a really strong Wrecking Ball-looking composition, whether it's with a Pharah, whether it's with a Tracer Sombra. They're able to get a win here. I think the jury's still out on them for the rest of the series, though.
San Francisco, though, they know they don't want to play against this double flanker setup. They have an answer to it, and where some teams have been able to deal with that in the past, right? You think your Dallas Fuel? Well, the Uprising have a slightly different approach. It's a very competitive first map, and that's a good omen for the rest of this series. So stick around if you love good Overwatch, because there's plenty more of that where this came from.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League, and by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
A lot of the speculation about what forms these team compositions characterized by our hero pools falls on what kind of tanks we'll be seeing. And I think it's fair to say that we've got some decently high flyers here. We've got Super obviously at 15, Troy at 19, and Stand 1 at 20 here. I will say though, despite this, I think that's where a lot of the question marks for both of these teams have been, right? San Francisco, Matt, with their sort of revolving door of different tanks, rotating them in and out. And then of the Boston Uprising with, Gabe Olshey and Punk, questions about, which of those is better for the future of the team and which of those really unlocks their compositions. Leighton Gilchrist, Punk, he's looking like a pretty nasty anti-air diva right now, and that's an important time to have that element available to you, Matt.
Yeah, he did a great job of that in the first map. Doesn't result in a win, but still played quite well. And then we'll see Super come in here for Smurf. So what's interesting, Smurf was so good last year, and I still think obviously ranks pretty high in terms of we were looking at tanks, but not in our IBM Watson leaderboards there for the tanks, which is interesting. I'd love to know kind of where he is in terms of that, because we talked a little bit about Choi. Maybe he hasn't kind of lived up to the expectations as he's had in previous seasons, right? Still very good, but not kind of that best off tank in the world conversation right now, maybe. But Smurf, you definitely have to take a look at him as well.
I feel like, did we not give him MVP in the 2019 Grand Finals? Was that, or Player of the Match, rather? I mean, Finals MVP. I mean, the nomenclature gets a bit muddled, but I remember that being such a powerful performance from him, especially on the Sigma, right? But, FD God said coming into this season, we're talking about something he played with Hanbin, right? He said playing with Choi was different. He felt that Hanbin was incredibly good on the Sigma specifically, but Troyobin just had this mastery across all off-tanks that he himself found really impressive. I think that interview might have gone up on GG Recon, I'm not too sure, but yeah, so interesting to hear from him about sort of what it's like to play alongside someone like Troyobin, but for all that, listen, you don't want to be ranked number 19 if you got these kind of accolades. And San Francisco, for them being, they might be a top 3 team in the West, but I'm sure they haven't reached their expectations yet this season. I'm sure there's still a lot they want to get done.
No, and I mean, this team is still extremely dangerous, right? The right meta, the right time. They can easily find themselves back in the championship conversation, which I know I'm 37 right now, just looking for a shot. They'll be the shotgun defense first here, and they'll be running the Torb with the McCree again. This worked out quite well for them on their first map. They'll have Super play the Reinhardt, though, so a little bit more brawly, close quarter play here with the Reinhardt versus the Orisa.
Genji switch here. I didn't hate the Hangzhou. Yeah, the Hangzhou looked pretty good against McCree and Torben. McCree especially now is shorter range. Neither of those DPS can really interact easily or consistently with Hangzhou at longer ranges, and you can press a Super shield down. It's unlikely he's just going to wave it out in the open though, as he'll play this corner. Valentine, bit of scouting, also trying to build that first Dragon Blade. We know Valentine's Genji specifically is particularly nasty. There's a Wrecking Ball rolling through. Again, just passing his regards. Torb turret there is going to be safe for the time being.
And the Hangzhou also allows you to get some kind of high ground vantage points. As you see the Shock, they're trying to get a rotation around to close the gap between them and Boston, but without a Lucio speed boost, with Lucio out with a hero pool, is very difficult. And right there, I'm 37 with a pick. Just a little headshot with the Hangzhou arrow right around the corner of the shield to take out Ons.
That's the problem. We're dealing with Hangzhou. It's a matter of time. He sits in a safe position and takes shots, and eventually you're not going to be standing behind your Ryan shield if you're looking for a big kill. Valentine doesn't blade this. I guess the damage reduction is helpful for him for the most part, but it doesn't really give the Uprising like a huge amount of progress in terms of point capture, and Violet's keeping the troops nice and topped up.
I mean, zero progress, right? I mean, you got in a tick, but still, for how things looked, you probably would have expected more as Ant Matrix goes down and they're able to find 937 out of it.
I mean, Nero finding him at arguably long range, I think. The damage boost is pretty helpful. Those rivets with the headshots do a crazy amount of damage. You just don't expect it. Again, it's another of those situations where
Another nano here, sorry, for this blade. So what, that's
Faith on the Ana, by the way.
Yeah, it's the second nano in what feels like a very short period of time.
Farming the Wrecking Ball, probably. Again, as Zen, you know, you're not accidentally healing anyone. You need to put a Harmony Orb on them, so it's easy to funnel all the healing towards one player. Here's the blade. Nano boost, of course, as well. Valentine looking for Violet. He gets it on, so only able to find M37. Those 2 kills from Valentine should be enough here. There's a very small cohort of Shock players left on the point. The rally is a little concerning for the Uprising in terms of trying to find a clean kill. It's not going to be easy now. And now it looks like Answer's back in the fight here. Valentine dashes through, though, gets rid of Twilight, and that's a great bomb. Unreal placement. I think Answer had no idea that he would die to that.
Yeah, it was looking pretty scary there for the Boston Uprising, although the Shockdown players, you had a rally going, you had Joy with a self-destruct, Ans was still in the fight, so you had a lot of things to be able to kind of fight that and stall it out until players came back, and Nero switches over to Tracer to do so. As I wonder if the Shock will commit to this for the second part of the map. Super on the ball.
Liking the Faith Ana so far. Another nano boost, by the way, Matt. He always has it. That's insane. All of the healing getting funneled towards one player. That means Valentine's a constant threat here. Here goes that nano. It's a nano Genji, and Valentine gets the headshot on Arns. Up close because he can afford to play so proximately to the Shock with how durable he is right now. Something needs to be done about this. San Francisco have to shut Faith down in some way, shape, or form.
And is the answer the McCree here? Because, like, we talked about, like, Soldier 76, maybe a little bit of a harder dive target, right? No, you don't have a shield for the McCree, so obviously very dangerous kind of peeking against, like, a Hangzhou. And then you also have, you know, dive targets coming out of this Nero, just spawn camping phase.
Look at that face. Stone cold, impassive.
But you know, the McCree is such a dive target here, and now they have Super go back to the Reinhardt to get a shield in the mix, because you need to have some kind of protection here from Ons if he's going to challenge the Hangzhou.
The Faith has switched towards the Brigitte now. Valentine able to get away from the Deadeye for the time being. There won't be a nano for this blade, but there'll be a Transcendence to help. Again, the Uprising take position. Oh, it's too late. Myunbong tries to save Valentine, but Arns had already secured the deed. He's going to fall to M37, but Troy's in a great position now to pressure into the back line. And yep, Faith in Myunbong going to fall one after another. Yeah, 2 dominoes sat next to each other.
Oh, that's a bad fight for Boston. They end up using their Transcendence, which doesn't get them anything, and then Stand 1 invests a minefield coming you know, from the backside there. I was wondering if we maybe see some changes from Boston, but it's just Faith back to the Ana as he switched over to the Brig for a little bit. So back to the Ana, trying to farm up this nano for the blade. That's really their best win condition right now.
Yeah, I don't know why they switched. It must have been just something they planned in advance, but the Ana was uncontested, building, you know, 3 nanos every minute or something ridiculous. Now you have to deal with this aspect, Nero's Tracer. We question, would it be the difference maker, or would they need a subbing Blister? Apparently the former is the case. Yeah, another bomb available here. He could really ruin plans for this backline if he doesn't get slept.
Punk has to use his bomb just to get a mech back.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Boston Uprising can't get out of this room, but that's the bomb. It catches on 37. Again, if you don't hit this sleep dart, your backline doesn't do too much against the Tracer. There's not a whole lot they can do to peel Nero off them outside of just hitting him forehead. I mean, yep, that's a diva moment.
I also think the reason we saw Faith switch to the Brig is because the Shock at that time were running the Wrecking Ball. So right. Wanted to give some more protection to Myunbong, right? You know, Zen Ana backline against like a Ball with the Tracer doesn't have really much protection. Utility.
Yeah. It's a very common sort of low elo solo queue thing because the throughput is pretty good, plus you have the damage, but you have no speed, you have no shield bash, you have none of that good stuff. No immortality field, it's tough. All right, Valentine. You'll have a nano this time. This is where the Uprising need to break through. Deadeye for Ants here. Okay, cancelled it very early. Even though it's in overtime, maybe he's worried about falling to the Hangzhou, but Valentine's caught out in the open there. Nothing he could have done as Twilight just beats him around the face parts. Dragon Strike here forces Super away from the cart for the time being. Punk is knocked down by the Shadow, but there's a Transcendence to keep him topped up. It may not matter though. Look at this, Twilight just pushes on up. Myunbong taken down here, and the Uprising has such a good start, Matthew. It looked really good.
Dude.
But it peters out.
how long did they have that blade for? They never actually even got the nano blade. They had the nano punk there. They held on this blade so long for nano, and they never actually got a use of it.
I think the Deadeye actually
terrible.
zoned the Ana out on the high ground from Arts. Even though he cancelled it straight away,
Well,
Boston may not have known that he had cancelled it.
See, I think the Deadeye there from Ants is like a bait, because every time he's actually been using the Deadeye, he's had Valentine kind of get in his face with the deflect, and the same thing happened there.
Well,
he
worked.
popped it.
They drew him out.
And,
then
yeah,
the Brig was
Valentine
there.
comes in. Yep, the Brig is there, and then the stun, and they're able to take out Valentine right away. And they're never able to get the blade out. I mean, Valentine uses the blade in the spawn at the end. I mean, just... yeah, pretty sad there for the Boston Uprising. They do end up getting the cart close that second checkpoint, but still pretty bad offense from the first checkpoint on.
Attackers incoming
In the beginning, the Uprising came out on this sort of Hangzhou pick against the Tor McCree. Great read against the composition, and eventually it gave them the result that they were looking for. But in general, San Francisco were really durable and really resilient to a lot of what the Uprising were trying to throw at them, even with the wrecking ball in play. This is a very, very, very different approach now for the Uprising, right? That Orisa, they are going to have IM-37 on the Sombra here. Interesting to see where Valentine sort of sets up on his soldier. Probably just high ground and gives him good resilience to ball, but Super's just walking up on the Reinhardt.
Yeah, we'll see how this works for Boston. The Zen, obviously with the damage, with the Brig in the backline, right? They're trying to be a deterrent to potentially the dive that comes through. That's a translocator back in the spawn, so IM-37 after he scouts is going to come back on the Hangzhou. So a lot of shield break potential here for Boston. Zen, Hangzhou, 76. Without the speed, how do they get Super in position to do damage on this Reinhardt?
The Shock want to execute their plan without having to turn around or deal with any sort of threats behind them. Very hostile anti-dive composition for the Shock. But again, yeah, you have to deal with Orisa's shield pressure. I mean, getting a random kill like that definitely goes a hell of a long way. Nero's able to find ahead of Valentine. Okay, that had to happen. Nicely done by IM-37. Good composure. Answers taken care of, but the Shock have the better positioning right now.
I feel like the Shock got the exact position they wanted. They're able to get up the stairs where Super can put his shield down, charge it for a bit, and then get up, as it'll be Boston who gets on a contest. Now Super can play around this corner and swing freely.
He got caught out there. There's no two ways about it. Arnt's able to find Stand 1. He's back on the Widowmaker, by the way. Makes perfect sense. His team has good position on the point. He can flank on this roll. Bit of throwbacks to Shawfar on King's Row all those many years ago. He's in a perfect spot to play this hero. Great pick there for Arns.
escort the payload.
We had so many interesting results throughout this weekend. Nero with the hammer kill there on a Valentine. But what, you had Boston. I know that they get a big win that I don't think many people expected. You had Dallas with a loss, but then Dallas comes back against the Shock, and now the Shock taking it to the Boston Uprising. I feel like this meta and everything we've seen so far is very matchup dependent and then also map dependent on where you can run certain things. As Nero gets a pick here through the Amp Matrix, is Valentine not having a fun time, as this looks like a dominant map win potentially on the tables for the Shock.
Hey, listen, I mean, the Uprising are a team you prepare for now. The Outlaws made the mistake of not doing so in the last stage, and it cost them dearly. Okay, point looking more like a birthday cake right now as the Molten Core gets thrown down, and that'll be enough to get San Francisco over the line. Crucially, they deal with whatever Boston had to throw at them on the attacking side, and then they get to play Reinhardt. The Torb heroics of Nero definitely can't be ignored there. Nicely done for San Francisco to take this Blizzard World map.
I mean, they just looked great here on Blizzard World, able to switch to multiple different things at any time to take advantage of what Boston was throwing at them, and Boston just had no answers. I know the Genji really hurt the Boston Uprising on offense there. You're going to have to see them bounce back in a big way in the second half of the series, because the Shock do not give up 2-0 leads.
No doubt about it. Tough times here for the Boston Uprising. This one might just slip out from their group. They have to come up big. On the other side of these messages, ladies and gentlemen, map number 3 between the Shock and the Uprising is up real soon, so stick around, see how this one ends.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles. Stay in the game.
So here's a fun fact. In our pick'em competition so far this year, over 2 million picks have actually been made. And obviously a new tournament means we have a new bracket. So for those who got boomed at whatever stage in the Summer Showdown, you have a clean slate. No, I'm kidding. I mean, this weekend's already been completely out of control for your pick'ems. But hopefully you've submitted yours so far. And it's really going to be a contest of whose pick'ems are the least tattered by the end here of this Countdown Cup. You can head to pick'em.overwatchleague.com to submit your picks for this week's matches. Of course, a chance to win yourself a Hangzhou statue and $500.
You gave me that fun fact yesterday. I wanted another fun fact.
Oh, okay.
I pay attention to when you read those.
I'll come up with a new fun fact. All right. I'm sure.
Yeah.
We literally have. I mean, we have a research department. People whose job it is to find that stuff out. So I'll ask them. How about that? All right.
Yeah.
As long as you're okay with it not coming from me.
Yeah.
I'm not Maven. All right. No, I have my hair. Thank you. Route 66 coming up next here. This is our map leaderboard presented by Xfinity.
That hairline looks like you may not have that hair much longer. I mean,
I've
the way
always
that
had a
could-
massive
you know,
forehead, dude. It's trust me, it's not receding. My eyes are lower than they
You keep looking for
It is, man.
headsets with bigger bands to try and put it in the front to mask it. You won't trick me.
Yeah, I mean, but I had to use
Now
a
the
fan
people
belt
at
off the
home are
truck
onto
just
it.
today.
Yeah, now the people
Yeah.
at home are onto it.
I mean, what do you mean onto it? Just look at my head. It's massive. It's not hard. Hats don't fit me. It's just the way it is. I just get on with life.
Somebody get me a picture of Mitch from season 1 and then now on the screen. Let's get a
Yeah, because
get a
been saying
hairline
with you has
check
just
between all of
increased my
us.
brain matter. My forehead is just.
That's true. Working with me,
exploded.
Josh, and Bren has probably pushed it back.
I mean, you make
pretty
me
far.
work with you makes me feel smart, even if I'm not smart. Matt, I'll say that.
Hey,
much.
that's what I'm here for. I'm here to give you the illusion you're intelligent. Here to just provide the facade.
That's all I need. Listen. I'm happy
Yeah.
living in complete ignorance, Matt. I'm literally talking about video games from my 110-degree garage right now, mate. I'll take any illusions you have for me. Obviously, hero pools mean that these 4 heroes are out of rotation. So it's Echo, Ash, Sigma, and Lucio unavailable right now, which is why you're seeing some interesting support combinations and some players that we aren't used to seeing on certain supports. Of Faith, for example, we got to see on it's Arna in that last map, which looked really good. He must have done a ton of healing per 10 because he was building that nano boost so fast, Matt. Boston here are not going to do the spawn camp defense. You mentioned it yesterday with the Wrecking Ball. It's much harder to pull off.
Yeah, and you see the stat that the Shock of all time never lost an escort map to Boston. So not a good sign for the Boston Uprising here going into Route 66.
I mean, this was the Super Genji map, Matt. This was Super Genji versus Color Hex.
I mean,
It's not even a dank meme. You know, it wasn't even that long ago. Hopefully Boston have forgotten about that.
so the Shock, they come out originally with the Tor, but now seeing the Pharah in the sky and the Hunt, so they want to have Nero play the Tracer, especially against like an Ana Mercy combination. Could potentially catch one of these out, start picking up some easy kills from behind.
Man, losing stand 1 there is just devastating for the Uprising. Valentine paves the way, right? Fantastic pick. He's playing above the Reinhardt shield. He's at a safe distance. He's navigating around the McCree so well. Losing a Wrecking Ball here really is going to hurt you. I love this aggression. Valentine comes forward, but now there's an Ant Matrix in play. He can still fire off the rockets fairly safely, and it's Om37 who kills Twilight with his Sonic Arrow.
Just firing it into the Ant Matrix as they were using Defense Matrix and the shield to protect the Violet as he was really low, and I imagine just one of those dissipated and then just get a random headshot. So Boston, they get a stop for now. I feel like though they give up so much position here with having to wait for Stand 1 to come back.
Oh, Super. Awkward backpedal there as he saw the Dragon come towards him. It's not lined up perfectly, so Super's actually able to get away with that one. That headshot might be important there on towards Punk, but there's no follow-up as Om37 has got another crucial kill, making two headshots at that. The guy doesn't look impressed with himself, but he bloody well should be. It's his 3rd kill for the fight here, and that's definitely putting the Shock to bed. This Hangzhou play is sublime.
The Shock are really split. They had Choi and Nero working on a flank, Super, Violet, and Twilight kind of stuck, walking down the main choke. As we see a replay here from I'm37 when we get back into the game.
Oh my God! What?
It is filthy.
And he made it look effortless as well. That's astounding. Fantastic shot from I'm37. All jokes about Hanzo's randomly firing and getting kills aside. That one was intentional and, oh man, not an easy one to hit. All right, bit of damage here on the Wrecking Ball. Super's got to roll on away. The Cards are making decent progress now, and here comes the Dragon Strike. The Shock again are able to evade it for the most part, but they're split. Look at Violet can't even walk outside the cave right now. That Pulse gets ate up by Punk. He's been hungry. Nero has no recall right now, needs to be a little bit careful, but Valentine might be flying a little close to the ground. Chikobi gets desuited, maybe trying to harass the enemy. Farah here. The Shock are struggling. They are not getting much done here. They have to use Transcendence for what?
It looks like for nothing. I mean, Violet farms it so fast, which is impressive. But it goes for absolutely not. Now, maybe you end up using the Transcendence. You force out some of these other ultimates because a lot used there by the Boston Uprising. You had to use your Barrage. Really, the only ones you're going to have for this next fight are going to be your Valkyrie and your Dragon Strike. So maybe you're able to get Minefield and then a Pulse Bomb as Twilight now over to the Batiste. So Bap with Zen. Lots of damage output here from the Shock.
Well, they're going to need all of it, and maybe more in this last 30 seconds, even to match the impact that I'm37's been able to have on Hangzhou so far this round. That's a good start. Myeongbong out of the picture now. Faith has Valkyrie, so Resurrect is possible. And there it is. He's back in the fight now in the 6v6, and all that hard work is undone for now. Arms has to cancel that Deadeye and get away from the Dragon Strike. The card is getting awfully close here, and getting rid of Punk is a pretty big way to make some progress. Stan 1's going to stall out for as long as he can. The flashbang immediately on towards Valentine to the backside. They take down another boosted fire. That's huge. Arns finds a headshot that he desperately needed. And now the prospects for the Shock looking much rosier. They get that first checkpoint. Some sharp shooting there, Tex.
Oh, I mean, they come up huge in clutch time. Is Nero with a Pulse Bomb on Myeongbong. They're able to get the res, but still just drawing Faith back during his Valkyrie. It gives him enough of an opportunity, enough of a window to get a DMech on the Punk. Boston Uprising making some big changes, so Zen break, and then they'll also play the Tracer with the Sombra. This has San Francisco, though. They see this, they make the adjustment straight away. They bring in a Brig, they bring in the Torbjorn and the Reinhardt. So Shock making these adjustments so fast when they see Boston make these changes. They know exactly what they want to go to at all times.
Yep, lip reading Super, he literally said, guys, they have Tracer Sombra. So that call came out very early on. Valentine sat by that Mega for the time being. Shock have to find a way to get off this building and onto the card. Looks like the Uprising just let them do that, not too bothered. Arns is very scared about being knocked off the map here, and that Transcendence is good to clear some of these mines, and yet Triggerman still falls foul of one of the explosives. Frustrating to lose your DB here, but he had no choice. He was demeched into a mine.
It's like, can you still get any payload progress here, though? Looks like they're just trying to get Super Shield back up. May try to bait them into an engagement inside of the house, but you lose Arns there. Now it's starting to get tough.
San Francisco really trying to play around that McCree, right? They do get Valentine at the very least here. It's tough to play Tracer into this. I wonder if Valentine sticks or goes Genji or something else. Yep, okay, that's the Genji switch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really playing around the McCree, right? Just in this close quarters area, having the Reinhardt in the mix, the Rein, the Zen, the Brig.
Oh,
very difficult. I mean, it is just a murder fact. And there's we have the Shock. Arns is going to go to 76, so a little bit more consistent damage here, a little bit more mobility. And now with the Genji swap, goes right back to the McCree. So changes coming. I feel like that's kind of been the story of the season. We've seen so many adjustments from teams on map-to-map basis. Counter comps. This seems to be the pinnacle of it, though.
Oh! Okay, I'm 37 out to get away and still get the EMP. Still got the EMP, crucially. Puck now going to try and, again, take advantage of these close quarters here, but seeing the Transcendence, he probably thinks again. Can they get the Genji here? Great neutral knockdown from Faith. Super went for the charge. He shield bashes immediately. The Uprising have the answers right now. Valentine never really had to do anything fancy on this Genji. Just stay alive, and that was enough. Nero went for the Molten Core earlier on. There was no value to be found there as the Transcendence from Myeongbong was nice and timely. And this is a fantastic defensive hold so far for the Uprising. Punk's a little low, but he'll be just fine here. And it's just going to be Super trying to stall things out. Nero had already fallen, of course, and that'll be that. Tough stuff here for the Shock to break through.
And the Shock's offense wasn't good on point A. You remember correctly, that came kind of down to the wire. So Boston, once they have that huge time advantage as we go into that second stage of the map, they know what they want to go to. Force the Shock to make a lot of changes, give up some ultimates, and they're able to stabilize, get control, hold on this second point defense. So you see where the cart gets to. This will be the victory line for the Boston Uprising here. I feel like this is where Shock, though, they can play, maybe you play an Orisa, Reinhardt, whichever one you wanted to play, play the Torbjorn, right? You can play some of these defensive setups a little bit easier here now on the defensive side of things.
In fairness, on that defense, the Shock have looked pretty solid so far, owing, of course, to their much more defensively geared compositions, right? They're always playing around the McCree and the Torbjorn. So this is definitely their standard look. Boston have to know this. Again, there's always a question of whether, like, I'm37 sees this sort of, again, anti-dive setup and goes to Hangzhou and tries to find a pick like he did on Blizzard World. So this is not the end. This is Punk going nuts inside the saloon.
He's just firing forward. I mean, what did we see yesterday? It was space for the double melee, like almost in the same area of the map. As everybody just kind of clumps together. Shock will play close, Mitch. We don't see we see teams that like don't play the Wrecking Ball or maybe even don't play the Orisa. They can play close to this Reinhardt. They're going to try and take control of this container, and that'll be the Pharah just trying to put down big damage in there, kind of splash damage, trying to really make it difficult for the Shock to hold that spot.
I mean, this works. We've seen this work already so far this weekend. Until the Wrecking Ball kind of knocks everyone out of position. The Shock are not playing as far forward as I thought they would, though. Maybe the Pharah that makes them not want to play inside the train card itself. There's just too much splash, but they need to try and keep Nero nice and healthy. Over the top there, you can see Stan 1. He'd love to pressure Arms right now, who's pivotal to this setup. Keep hitting those headshots and he'll keep being able to lay the Uprising low. Like a D.Va D-suit there is massive. Nicely done by Arms and Violet.
Yeah, I think the hard part is if you keep playing in those containers with the Hangzhou in the mix, you give him high ground and opportunities to get off angles to get that's cheap picks. It's very low. They're going to have to heal on top as they do have an Ant Matrix. This is a Dragon Strikeout. Just trying to buy them some space. But they're going to lose stand 1. Yeah, they're going to get nothing.
I mean, there's nothing to force them to stand in the Dragon Strike. It's so easy to spread. And in fairness, the Shock are already kind of spread thinly over this part of the map anyway. Violet's playing so far back, they can hear and see the Dragon coming. Good setup so far for the Shock. I'm37 got the damage. He had a Dragon Strike. This barrage has to be pretty big. And yeah, we'll take a kill on Ants any day of the week. I think that's exactly what the Uprising needed to break this forward hold.
Yeah, I mean, the Shock hold on to some of these ultimates, though, going into the next fight, right? Self-destruct, you'll have a Molten Core, Deadeye, your Rally, where Boston, they have to end up using some ultimates just to get out of the spawn, get the cart moving. So, you're the Shock, you can get up into a position, with this Reinhardt, maybe Rally, win a fight win, with that. You get down to like a minute 30 on the clock, you still have some ultimates. This will be a Rally just to get out of the choke and try and get some aggression off of this.
Ans needs to respect Valentine. That is an insufficient amount of it. Not a good look. And that's a big problem here for San Francisco. Now, no one really keeps Valentine honest. This Molten Core doesn't bother the Pharah at all. Joy does, apparently, though. He's able to chase Valentine down, but great minefield. Stan 1, really, that's a brute force solution there. He just runs in. He knows the Molten Core's on the cart, so he says, oh, minefield the high ground. And he gets the kill for his troubles. Here's another Dragon Strike here. Again, doesn't force too much, but leaves Violet out in the open. It's going to be an easy pile drive kill. Ants is back in the fight, but it's just him and Shoyobin. Just 2 players right now for the Shock. They need a lot more than that, and this McCree is not panning out.
Yeah, I mean, you have Nero and Super coming back. Choi's still alive. This will be a shatter. See if they can get anything off the back of this. Is Violet coming back will have an Ant Matrix.
Yeah, Shoyobin's not in any position to break up the res there. And Punk has actually interposed himself between Choi and the rest of the Shock there, so that's great. The Uprising cut off any sort of reinforcement route, and they've got a ton of time to work with here. 3 minutes and 22 seconds. They don't even need that second checkpoint.
I mean, Ant's coming out of that position, I mean, that is tough, especially when he fires that shot and misses Valentine. At that point, they know he's coming. I mean, Punk is there, Valentine is there. So we do have some changes. Nero goes over to the Tracer, with Super on the ball to kind of match some of that dive. And Boston, they answer with the Sombra Tracer. So they clearly want to go to this when they see the McCree on the other side.
McCree's recoil recovery makes it hard to hit consistent shots on the same target. That's why there's even a setting there to make it easier. And even with that, it's hard to do. So it's not an instant kill against Pharah if he sees it. Look at this. Arns again gets taken down first. Arguably the weakest point right now in the Shock, or at least the one being exploited to the greatest degree. And here's San Francisco just folding.
Yes, I mean, Twilight gets low. They need to use an Immortality Field to save him. What can you really do here if you're San Francisco? You get a DMAC. You're going to have to get a contest here, though, as Choi just has to get a mech back.
Super touches the card. 2 minutes and 18 seconds now. Pulse Bomb pulls up a little bit short there. That's going to mean the Violet still has a chance to impact the fight at large. Arns will switch to the Soldier 76 because he needs to be able to put some distance between him and his aggressors. There's too much pressure right now, and Myeongbong is dealt with. Just a chance here, yeah. I mean, you absolutely go for these. You want to stay alive in this series, you'll do whatever it takes. I'm37, though, has to translocate away.
All right, so can the Shock hold this? With a minute 49 on the clock, you're really looking at I'm 37. You know, getting this EMP, if the EMP is good, you think that's enough to kind of close the door and win the map for Boston. With playing around that, you know, big potential to just kind of win the game with one ultimate, though, is a bit scary. You see Ons take some shots there from Youngblood. You see a defense mage just to keep himself alive. If Violet, if Violet can come up with a kill here with an Ant Matrix, as you see Youngblood take out Ons, Transcendence has to come out here early for the shock.
Still a good pulse bomb opportunity on Fate. The Transcendence can't save the Brigitte. Nero could have killed Stan 1 if he wasn't manually hacked beforehand, but he'll take that. And another one. Nero doubling down here on the Tracer impact. He needs more, but that's going to get harder and harder now as he's so low on health. Minefield thrown up on the point there. That's Stan 1. Punk struggling. Super ad mines of his own, rather. It was his field. Aren't they going to try and dodge away his soldier? He might have legs, but they're not going to carry him far enough. And the Boston Uprising stay alive in this series. Looking pretty darn good at that. San Francisco really get punished by trying to rely on this McCree for so much of the map.
I don't even think it was compositionally, to be honest. I think it was just, if you're Ons, you can't die early in some of these fights, right? You die at the beginning of the first one on the point A, where you come out on the McCree, which is not in a great position. And there, when they lose you on the 76, they lose a lot of damage. And what does that do? That forces the Transcendence out from Twilight to get onto the cart, and that allows a big EMP to go off, which after that, they're not able to recover.
Sterling stuff for the Uprising. Really important to stay alive in such an important series. They are 7-6, so staying above 500 is imperative at this stage of the season. Map number 4 looms large here in San Francisco. Want to nip this one in the bud. If they're not careful, the Uprising will cause them problems. Stay tuned.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
difficult early series for the Boston Uprising, as San Francisco seem to have all the answers to their favorite compositions. Route 66, though, looks like an absolutely different kettle of fish, and the Boston Uprising are actually able to punish San Francisco's preferred setups. And we go to Temple of Anubis here. That'll be our assault map in this series. Map 4, as the Uprising are looking for that ever-elusive 5th map decider. Maybe even a series win.
Yeah, well, that's the first escort that Boston has ever beaten the Shock on in the Overwatch League, right? The Shock were 5-0 against the Boston Uprising on that game mode, and they end up winning that one to extend this series, keep their chances alive, as no substitutions for either team, so no color hex sighting so far for the Boston Uprising, and for the Shock, we have not seen Glister today. We saw Smurf in map number 1, but it's been super ever since, as they've been able to, run him on the Wrecking Ball and the Reinhardt in certain areas of the maps.
And we've seen, we've seen San Francisco on this map plenty, especially during sort of the Lucio Moira-based meta, where we had a lot of, Nero on the Echo. It's not an option for them. We've seen Nero pick up the Tracer in this particular series, and I have to highlight him on Blizzard World. I thought he was particularly effective, right? Really, really good there. Maybe when you're playing the Torbjorn on a defensive part of the map where it was like really long sight lines, maybe didn't make quite as much sense. You're really susceptible to Hangzhou or something similar. But here, you feel like this is fine, right? You can set that turret up on the stairs or wherever you want to. This is a San Francisco special by this point. Playing the same way that the NYXL used to love to play, right? Always play slow, defensive, compact. Torbjorn was definitely a pick of theirs then, so it'll be up to the Boston Uprising to try and find a way to break this one open, and a lot of that rests on Sandwine, how effectively he can get that displacement going on presumably the Wrecking Ball pick.
Yeah, and the Wrecking Ball has some difficulties on this map, as Valentine will go over and play the Pharah. So instead of going with the Tracer Sombra, which we've seen from them a decent amount of the series, when they see this composition now, they opt to go to the Hangzhou and the Pharah. This is just tons of shield damage, and if Super doesn't have that shield, it forces them into positions where you can get big pile drivers and big damage follow-up.
Right, you basically have to shield the pile driver at this point. If you don't have that available, your team's going to get knocked up, and it's an easy kill for Valentine. Look at this. That's nasty Techers firing in, through the slats of wood on the ceiling. There's nowhere really the Shock can play now that Valentine doesn't have purview of, and that'll be evidence there as he's able to get rid of Violet as I'm37 fires at him across the map, and nobody is dealing with this Pharah, and that is going to be a huge problem.
I mean, not just the Pharah, right? How do you even deal with the Hangzhou? You can't have, Ons kind of stand out there in the McCree as he switches over to Tracer. So you'll lose Nero here. So this is a really nice offense from the Boston Uprising. And I think it's just more of like, okay, now they figured out what they want to run against these compositions from the Shock. How do the Shock adjust? How do they play around this? So right now it looks like you'll see Nero on the Sombra. So they will run the Sombra Tracer. It's just a little bit of the opposite of what we originally thought, as On switches over to McCree now. I thought they would have Nero play the Tracer and On play the Sombra, as we've seen Ons in the past play it, but now they'll play Sombra McCree with the Reinhardt in the mix.
They're worried about this Pharah. I mean, with no Ashe available to play, this is maybe like your best look against it.
It helps them against the ball, but not against this.
I mean, that's 2 kills for Valentine already, and he's looking for more. Ant Matrix came out. Super was able to find an Ant Fire Strike that got rid of Myeonbong, but he just gets rezzed up. So now the Uprising, they're going to close the deal here. Always be close in Boston. They have to push off the point, or rather push the Shock off the point here. And listen, those kills are probably enough to get the job done here. Myeonbong goes down yet again. I don't think there's another Resurrect available for at least the next 8 seconds or so. That might actually end up hurting Boston. Just losing that one player there. You've got to be pretty clean behind the ears if you want to take point B on this map.
And you lose the Pharah, so it's a large source of damage. So yeah, you will be able to get a hold here if you're San Francisco. You give up 73% on the point. Super on the ball. Is this what you want to play on defense? Ball Tracer McCree. We'll see if they decide to stay on this or make some changes. But Boston, they'll play the Zen with the Brig. And then they'll also go to the Tracer in Sombra. I think, though, they may now make changes. You see players running back to the spawn. They know that the Aris is in the mix. They know that the Torb is. And, yep, here we go. Back to the Pharah with the Hangzhou. Bring in the Ana. And now you see Nero make a switch and Super make a switch. I mean, it is just a never-ending game of rock, paper, scissors, it feels like.
Absolutely. The Shock don't want to get caught with the wrong composition with 1 tick left on the point. It's just not enough of a buffer. They need the ideal composition here. And they're close to their spawn, so why not? D-Bomb goes in there from Punk, doesn't find anything, and Valentine is chased out of town. He looks a little bit unhappy about that one as the Resurrect was also interrupted, but on account of the fact that Faith just got blown up.
Nah, you'll leave Punk. Oh, well, thought you were going to leave him demech, but he actually gets finished off by Non's flashbang. So, see if Boston, yeah, okay, so I'm 37, switches over to Sombra. Do we see the Shock just kind of change to make him swap back? It looks like nothing thus far, so maybe we'll be able to run this Sombra from I'm 37. Makes Super's life pretty difficult.
How does Valentine get in now? And the Shock are hyper aware, or hyper sensitive to that Pharah. Arms looks like Matt behind the wheel right now. Bit of pressure on Myunbong there from Nero. Gonna go climbing for a moment now. Stan One, I mean, he really just wants to take Violet out of the equation. Throws a minefield down. Again, this can't be happening to him.
Yeah, I mean, he gets a minefield and then just gets blown up before he can even get out. And his teammates are at the choke. They're not even close to being able to follow him up. I know that Nero just being a nuisance in the back line. It's Boston now. Well, now we see a Winston. Okay, so now we got Winston Tracer potentially.
The
with a
consensus is that
Sombra.
Winston's just not great right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of find a spot for him, but maybe this is an area where the ball isn't really helping. Almost a stun into an own pulse bomb there. The ball just kind of gets really far away. There's no Sombra on the other side. Maybe you think you can dive and survive a little bit longer against like a Twilight, but I mean, the ball seems to be the play here instead of the Winston. And now you have the Torbjorn in play, which is even worse for Winston.
Nano Winston, but he was already on the back foot. Stan One wasn't really in a position to get any value out of the extra damage, so he's not building a primal anytime soon, especially not with Faith out of the picture. Now it's, oh god. I mean, the Shock are just going to catch Boston here and punish them.
Do you swap there just for a nano target? Like, who else would you have nanoed if you're, Myunbong, right?
There isn't a good one, to be fair.
Right? I mean, like you wouldn't have nanoed the ball. Do you nano the Brig there? I mean, would maybe nano Tracer, but still, see if Boston now can capitalize on this EMP. A reminder, they do have 81% of the point, right? So it's not like they need a huge fight win, to kind of start their progress. They already have it. The hack gets broken up.
Super's able to get away. That could have been a tough one for him, Nick. Great work by Twilight there. The whip shot. Just interrupting that ability. No hack. All right, so the Uprising of everything. This is about as good as it gets for them outside of like a primal, but they lose Stan One early. That has been a theme. It's been a theme.
It's a very aggressive use of a Deadeye there, but yeah. You've lost Stan One. Yeah, you've lost Stan One, whether it is on the ball, whether it's on the Winston. I really don't understand the Winston swap here, but
30 seconds remaining.
See if I'm 37 can get a big EMP. That's going to be a nano use at the choke and rally there for Boston and the EMP, but the mines are going to split some players off. They're not going to be able to follow it up.
And it means that Stan One's too late to the party, Matt. Yeah, he was nanoed, but everybody on the Shock's able to turn and look at him with an amplification matrix. Even the damage mitigation of that Ana ultimate is not enough to keep Stan One alive. He's feeding right now, and it's not even necessarily his fault. The focus for the Shock was laser sharp there. And I'm37 now has to hack for hope for a manual hack, maybe, to stall that a little bit here. He had to reveal himself to contest the point, so he has no choice but to do that. Nice bomb from Valentine there. Nero is finally out of the picture. Maybe he can start to play with more confidence, but the turret's still there. Violet's down to Stan One, though. It looks like the Shock all pushed up to make sure a late cap wasn't an option, and that's 2 now for Stan One. He's getting his revenge finally. Primal Rage, perfect positioning. That's a 3rd for Stan One, and now Troy can't get out of the cloisters in the back of the point. Super comes back in the Wrecking Ball, though, and there's going to be, of course, a Molten Core in play. Stan One gets rid of the Torb again, but he's stuck inside the goo. Nano boosts. Oh, God, he's still taking so much damage. But Super, only a brief reprieve sitting under the Immortality field. He's still going to be taken down eventually. And now the Winston's such a big problem. Stan One going to win the boxing match against Punk. Still more interesting than Mayweather against Paul, I suppose. But I'm 37 going to go down, and Valentine now has to try and make it happen on his own. A decent attempt for the Uprising there, but they don't gain any more progress in the last 4 minutes of this round.
I mean, that time Stand 1 was actually doing a lot, right? You had the Nano, Primal, he was picking up kills, but a rally comes through for the Shock. I know Super in combination with the Molten Core bought some time for them to actually get some players out of the spawn. And once they deal with Stand 1 and then the rally comes through, nothing Boston can do. They needed that Winston on the point in that position. Good point A take from Boston. Just point B fell apart.
Not at all, I think, what you're looking for there for the Uprising. Again, look, we mentioned that San Francisco kept changing, right? It was like a game of, what you say, chess? I don't know what was you mentioned, but they're 2 ticks down already. So I think the San Francisco Shock have the luxury of, being so close to this one, massive defender's advantage. Just make sure there's nothing that counters us or could undo us. Just make sure we know what's coming. We scout it out early on. We, use Super up there on the bridge and protect him as well if he would get hacked. You saw the Twilight was very good at breaking up I'm37's hacks. I'm37 had a really good start to this series, map number 1 on the Sombra. San Francisco, though, really able just to start to ease into that defense. And Stan 1 struggling then. You see with the Winston, gets more value than the Wrecking Ball towards the end of that round, but it's really just a fight where he sort of gets a nano, he gets to get in people's faces there. The EMP is what set that Winston up. Without it, Stan 1 was a lemon.
Yeah, now it's just a game of rock, paper, scissors, right, between these compositions. So I fully expect to see swaps galore as the Shock now go to Orisa. Is this going to be McCree? Yeah, so McCree Farha with the Orisa. Not as static as having the Torb in play, but still a good amount of damage to potentially try and bait some of these players on Boston, and they're going to get a DMAC here.
Punk is taken down there. Nero spots Myunbong now, so he knows how to stay out of range of Ana. Oh, that is that is filthy from Nero. Yeah. Double air shot on Valentine, and he had to react to that awfully quickly. I tell you what, he's quite the dynamo when it comes to those airborne heroes. Valentine just absolutely rocked.
It's good to see Nero. Obviously, he was a very good player with the Guangzhou Charge, but playing overnight, I think some of the NA fans didn't really get a chance to see him probably as often as
well, and he also
people would have
was
liked.
A sub, like he got rotated in.
Eileen, Happy, yeah.
That's
he
right.
Got, I believe last year he had some visa stuff, right? So didn't get to play a ton, but man, he has been a dynamic player for San Francisco this year.
Sick investment, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Nero gets away. Look at Choi. I mean, this is crazy. The Shock split themselves in half, and the Uprising don't expect this from San Francisco. They've just cut themselves here into onto the point. Nero knows he's going to go down, but there's a Resurrect available instantly, and getting rid of Faith is a big deal. 2 ticks already for San Francisco. 5 minutes left in the round. Supercharger and a cherry on top. This is a tough one for the Uprising, and there's not a thing they can do. The San Francisco Shock come up with the goods here on Temple of Anubis. They really tighten those screws on defense, I feel. Sets them up for a nice, smooth attack.
Hey, this is Countdown Cup's going to be crazy. Because what? You had Paris beat Dallas, then Boston beat Paris, then Dallas beat the Shock, and then the Shock come in and beat Boston. It's like everybody's just kind of trading games with each other. But I really think it comes down, Mitch, to how do they counter and how do they play against these certain compositions. Having Super in the game, right? Bring that Reinhardt look into the mix. We've seen Super play the Wrecking Ball as well. As the Shock, it looked really well-rounded in this game.
Super playing, by the way, 2 of the picks that Smurf was rotated into this team specifically to play, right? The Orisa and the Wrecking Ball. So during all of this time, while Super was sort of getting moved into play, Reinhardt in the Baptiste Rush compositions, and Smurf was getting to play the Winston, the Ball, the Orisa to some degree. He's practicing. He's working on the ball on the stream. He's getting a lot of. Well, I mean, his stream always gives him negative feedback. It's kind of the shtick of it all. But he's performing in front of 6,000 people 5 nights a week, trying to work on a lot of this stuff. I mean, and it's impressive now to see how that manifests actually in the league itself. We'd love to joke with him. We'd love to give him a lot of shtick, but very impressive performance. But our player of the match here, presented by Xfinity, he's not going to go to Super this time. We have to say the man that takes the honors today is Nero. Stunning stuff from him across the series, Matt. I think this is a bit of a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, I mean, the Pharah is very good. We expected that. That's one of the heroes that, even before this tournament, Nero was known for, right? How good his Pharah play was. But then being able to pull out a Torbjorn that's really effective. And then even for me, being able to play that Tracer just adds another look to the Shock that he's going to be a very big player for them if they're going to go far here in the Countdown Cup. Even a little bit of Doomfist coming off of spawn here at the end. Keep things alive, but having a player that can play, the projectile, the hit scan, like everything at a reasonably high level is a piece a lot of other teams do not have. So having Nero be able to play, all these different heroes, give them different looks without having to make substitutions, map in and map out, definitely a big win for the Shock.
And this is a Shock lineup that has less substitutions, right? This series we're not seeing Glister, Smurf only for sort of a portion of it here. Nero has to play as a DPS under different kinds of compositions, right? On a bunch of different picks. So they require separate mindsets and approaches, but the fact that he can switch to Doomfist there and just ruin people is very clear that he's well at home on this team, and he's quickly becoming a focal point, I think, as far as the damage dealers are concerned on San Francisco. This team somehow unearths incredible talent each year. It's like a new player that really becomes like a top-flight individual in their class, and Nero is definitely the one on the spotlight right now. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Super. I think, San Francisco, we really want to lock up that playoff spot here. It's very important to them. So this win means a heck of a lot, Matt. We'll hear from him on the other side of the break.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break presented by Pringles. We're joined now by Super from San Francisco Shock. Super, I believe this is our first interview together of the season, so
Yes,
it's really good seeing you, and I'm very excited to talk to you. Before that, congratulations on your big win.
Yeah, thank you. I missed talking to you, man. It was getting too long.
Yeah, I know. How have you been?
I'm
How's
alright,
life?
you know, just life, doing day at a time.
And you know,
Yeah.
I mean, with this win, and I mean, right now, the Countdown Cup, it's going pretty well for you guys. Of course, the first match you guys unfortunately lost, but today was a big win for you guys. So, you know, talking about today's match, I feel like in the Countdown Cup and with the current meta, a lot of teams, you know, sort of use run Orisa and or Wrecking Ball comps, but San Francisco Shock is a little bit special because you guys throw in Reinhardt in the mix. What does Reinhardt bring to the table in the current meta?
I feel like for us, we just kind of feel like Ryan is more of a grounded option where like we can kind of, you know, take things at our own pace and kind of, you know, control what we want to do. And I know I got a lot of flack for that, and people were like, oh, you know, why don't you guys just stick with the meta or ball or whatever? But you know, we try things out, we practice things, and obviously we're gonna do what we think works the best. So.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think because this is like the first week of the Countdown Cup, would you say that is, you know, why you guys are sort of trying things out as well? Of course, and Reinhardt being sort of your comfort pick as well. Is that sort of all tie in because of that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the first week is always a little bit crazy. Like, you know, there's a bunch of people tried different stuff. You know, maybe some unexpected wins. I don't really like to use that as like an excuse though, because you know what happens is what happens. Everyone has the same rules to play with. But you know, like I always think it's a good time where you can kind of like get a feel for things and just see how your team reacts to it.
Okay. All right. So I have one more question for you, Super, and this is a little bit of a fun one. I feel like right now, of course, other than the San Francisco Shock, who do you think, or which team do you think is the strongest in the West currently in the Countdown Cup, and why?
In the West,
Yeah.
I think if I had to pick, besides us, I would say maybe Atlanta right now. I think Atlanta looks pretty good, and they had 2 good matches. And I think they kind of, you know, they have players that fit the heroes that they need to play pretty well. So I would say probably Atlanta.
And is one of the reasons because Atlanta is also utilizing the similar Ryan composition as well?
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, yeah, you know.
All right, Super. Thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, Super. That is it for the interview.
Have a good
and
one.
again,
Thank you.
congratulations. Thank you so much. All right, let's head back to the desk.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks a lot, Super. Congratulations to the San Francisco Shock. Now, guys, hear me out here. So Gator was being all mysterious about this, like, we're scrimming against a team and they also use Ryan, and it's pretty good. And then we see Super rocking up that Ryan, and then Super complimenting the Atlanta Reign. Is it possible that those two teams just scrim together?
I think
Did we
Super
solve a
Gator
mystery?
are just getting
Yeah, I
together. It's
feel
like, we can make Ryan meta. All we have to do is play a couple of maps, get
like
some
Super
wins, and we can get Ryan in the meta. I think that's what's happening right now.
It might be. Maybe they try to convince everyone else that Ryan is the meta, and then everyone else switches to Ryan, and then they can roll over them. Like, I don't know, something's going on. Something's in the water. Reinforce those Ryan comps, though. It kind of worked. I mean, I know you're not a fan, but it's gotta admit,
kind of work.
they kind of work.
I mean, we've seen it 2 matches in a row now. You're kind of getting away playing the slower compositions, playing the Reinhardt, playing the Orisa, especially against teams like Boston, like Houston Outlaws, that just don't have any Pharah games. Like they're just reluctant to play the counter to the Reinhardt. They're like, yeah, we're gonna try to ground this one out. We know we're gonna play the we're gonna play the Genji. We're gonna play the Senana. We're really gonna try to make this work. And it's like, okay, well, you know, have a go at it. You practice the composition. You have a better understanding of what went down in practice than I do. But yeah, I feel like Shock and Atlanta, they really got away with murdering that one, being able to pull out these Torbjorn and Reinhardt compositions and make them work against teams that aren't comfortable playing the Pharah. For example, we mentioned it with the Houston games, like Jake, can he really play that Mercy? Can they make that work? Houston opted not to, and Boston similarly here. It wasn't until Route 66 on point A where they really brought out the Pharah. A big problem for the Boston Uprising. Then we went over to Temple of Anubis for our final map, of course, and it really just felt like the San Francisco Shock. They had a better game overall when it comes to those Temple of Anubis compositions, which is way more straightforward. It's less so about setting up the dives, surrounding with the Sombra, because the point is so narrow here, right? So you can rely on Ans hitting big shots on the McCree. You can rely on Violet and Twilight having a great game in the backline. And so it really just felt like it was Shock's game after Boston Uprising couldn't find an answer. Had they won Lijiang Tower, though, that could have been a great match ahead of us. But Boston Uprising really put themselves in a hole they couldn't dig themselves out of.
Now, Reinforce, I want to take a look at our season standings in the Western region after this Shock win, because at this late stage in the season, every match, of course, has implications, not just for the Countdown Cup, but for the playoffs at the end of the season as well. Now, teams above that green line you see get a bye in playoffs. And teams need at least 10 points right now to stay in the running for those coveted spots. So Shock should be feeling, pretty good about today's win. And I believe Atlanta should be third right now with the if it were updated, which it isn't, but now you know. So, man, like, these victories are so important. They're actually so important. We can't stress that enough, just how much impact that can have, like just one single victory. So you don't really want to experiment too much. You don't want to drop those maps and matches, really. Now, before we're heading into our preview for the second, or rather for the last game of the day, it is time for our bold predictions presented by Pringles. And, well, this one, I don't know. Reinforce. You told me what it is, and I'm just like, I don't know if this is bold. I really don't. There we go. Here we go.
Here it comes.
What is it? I actually didn't.
Washington.
What do you? Oh.
Are going to win this match. There we go. That's
Isn't
my
that a
bold
prediction? That's not
That's
a bold
it?
prediction.
Pringles.
That's just a prediction, right?
Yeah, but it's a bold prediction, because, I mean, it's the Washington Justice, for crying out loud. I mean, this team has ups and downs more than a roller coaster. I mean, it's absurd, okay? I'm just getting adrenaline just being on this ride. It's the Washington Justice. This is bold. I can't believe I predicted this team. I kind of want to flip-flop, but here I am, stuck with the Justice.
I mean, you always can flip-flop. We have a graphic for it, even.
We had a whole voting system today. Do you want to flip
Can I
flop?
swap?
There we go. Like, it's right.
Funds
It's
are
up for
falling.
grabs.
Time to
Can we figure out the bold prediction part? Because I can't predict Washington will win today and then flip-flop the Gladiators. Can we cover this somehow?
That would make your bold prediction bold, at least.
Yeah.
If you predict them to win and your bold prediction is them winning, then it's not a bold prediction.
That's not bold, yeah.
If you predict the opponent, then it will be a bold prediction.
But I'm like countering myself.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't think too much
Some would say
about it,
stupid,
Johnny.
but bold is also
wanna-
another word for it.
I'd say
do
it's
it
pretty
or
stupid.
not? Do you
I
wanna
do,
it or
but then
not?
we don't have a bold prediction, Danny. If I swap,
That's fine. You
you
know what?
said it.
We're
It's
gonna roll
already
with
in.
it. We're gonna roll with it.
Alright.
But
We'll roll
just with the state as is right now, where teams are just trading losses and victories absolutely by chance, it seems, where everyone is just figuring things out still. Anything can go anyway, and we just wouldn't know. It's a bit of a mess. Let's be real.
So
Now,
what's my team?
What's it? Whatever.
I don't know. It's your
And with the
team.
power of
Johnny, what do you
friendship,
wanna pick?
They will push through.
Just stick with Justice. You can't decide.
We do want to preview
Okay, I'll
that
stick with
match
the
as
Justice.
well.
I'll
So
go
you
with
gotta.
Justice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with Justice.
Okay, so you stick with the Justice. So it
God, what
remains a
I'm
lukewarm prediction,
We got him.
but for the sake of it, we make it bold, I guess. Now, Costa, please tell him why he's wrong by means of previewing this next match.
Because I know Johnny's feeling. I know what's going on in his heart of heart right now, because Washington Justice is a team that theoretically should be very good, but we saw them play earlier this weekend, and it was anything but clean. They don't have a good grasp on the meta, which is surprising because they were one of the few teams that had played this meta heading into it in the Summer Showdown. So I don't really understand where everything went wrong. It feels like they're in the head. They're in their own head. Sorry, they're engaging at the wrong times. Mag isn't following, going aggressive enough, giving Assassin space to do anything. But the reason I can understand why Johnny is in his head about this one as well is they're going against the Gladiators. Another team that theoretically should be good. They are a great team. They have great players, and they do get success in good matches. But they can't string it together, and we saw that recently in that match where they lost to the Atlanta Reign. They just seem to... Honestly, both of these teams just seem to drop their spaghetti at some point in every match. But the question for me is going to be, is one of these teams going to play clean? And if they do, they will get the win. And if neither of them do play clean, like we saw from them earlier this weekend, which one is going to drop the spaghetti the least? I just want to see clean gameplay out of these two teams and want to see them play to their potential, because it's getting to the playoffs. They need to start stringing it together.
All right, so what I'm hearing is one of the teams may end up with something edible on their plate still, even after they drop it a little bit. Is that what you're saying? Is that what the analogy is going?
Don't drop all the
spaghetti
spaghetti
today.
There's lots of spaghetti. I'm also kind of hungry now.
Yeah,
I feel like I personally think he's in his head because he got 2 predictions wrong already. Way too rough it in.
It's rough out here.
Life's good. I don't know.
I hate it.
I don't have a good transition. I just want to get Uber and Mr. X in here to mock Johnny with me. So
Matt, I don't want to come into this conversation. I have a bold prediction. Nobody's going to win this series. Neither team. Nobody's going to win this series. One team is just going to lose it. They're just going to throw and just be a mess, and the other team is just going to win.
So even if you win, you lose. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so they kind of,
We've had games like that, so yeah.
I mean, these
that's
two
definitely a
teams, like, you look at the players on both of these rosters in the lobby, and, like, both of these teams should be, like, way better than they currently are. Like, these are two teams that are, like, floundering, barely making it into, like, the playoffs. Like, I mean, what? Whoever loses this drops to 8-6. I mean, you're like these teams should not be like 500 level teams. Like, these are teams. People were picking the Gladiators to win the whole league at the beginning of the year.
I do want to follow up with that. To that point, like, if you told me, like, yeah, the Washington Justice might lose because Gladiators can play Miran the Farah, and I'm like, yeah, but they have Fury on their team. Like, shouldn't they be set against Farahs? Like, please.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
Both of these teams are so baffling and confusing. Like, the Justice start out every first week just not knowing what to play, and then, you know, they have a week off, and then they're the best team in the league, and the Gladiators, you know, they look great.
Don't worry,
fail.
no matter what happens to the Justice, Pre will have a bunch of stats to highlight why his players are so good. That's one you will have positivity from Pre, regardless of the result here. But yeah, look, okay. I'm looking forward to this matchup because one of these two teams has to get up a gear, right? I think that the Justice got a lot of criticism for looking uncertain of whether to fight or unable to, like, identify when they had a good opportunity to go forward. That might have something to do with the fact that Decay, by the way, has like the least deaths in the league on Tracer, maybe second least deaths. Like, he plays pretty safe in some situations where maybe you just want to, you know, throw caution to the wind and actually make something happen, I think. Look, decent preamble. I kind of like the idea of two teams that are finding identities right now, but then they both have to find them kind of now, kind of right now. So we'll see how this this sort of plays out. I know you guys are waiting for it. So we'll catch up with
somebody's
you guys.
Going to figure it out.
We're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you off the screen, Paul, guys. So you have to come up with bold predictions. I mean, we are at the point in the season now where we literally have to, you know, help them out with a bold. Next time we'll prepare one, Matt.
I like Danny's prediction based off of the fact that he has Washington Justice memorabilia at his house. That, like, well, this is a great time to bust out my Justice foam. I actually think I have a Justice foam hand around here somewhere. I think I have a little gavel.
We were at the homestand earlier last year.
Yeah, I have a little gavel. I still have some stuff from the Justice homestand. I like the Justice homestand. Right now, they just have not lived up to the hype, I feel like. And what's funny is a lot of people coming in were worried about the support line for this team, but I really feel like they haven't been bad. Like, I think it's just been the coordination and just the strategy as a whole has really kind of failed the team. I don't think the support line has been particularly poor.
No, well, it's not a weak point on this team. The problem is that, like, every other team, their support line is like a strong point, right? Especially in the flex support position. I think Bebe is a quality. He's been around the league for a long time, like since 2019, right? And it was someone that has always had pretty high expectations. His honor, I think, has been particularly good here, and I think Closer's a very safe. He was a safe Lucio player. He always has been. Even on the Dallas Fuel, the guy was just like really. He was never like the weakness or the risk taker on the team. The Gladiators now. This is an interesting team because if you want to compare like the Wrecking Ball deaths between these rosters, Muse has like 6 deaths per 10. So when the Gladiators try to use Wrecking Ball compositions, they have problems, or Muse has problems, whoever you want to blame, keeping the Wrecking Ball player alive. They have incredibly aggressive backline, right? Space has really impressive diva stats, especially in terms of like the final blows elimination, kill-related statistics. But he dies a lot as well, you know what I mean? So the front line of this team all have pretty high deaths per 10. So where does that solidity come from? Maybe someone like Kevster, Matt, on the Tracer, who's been fantastic.
Yeah, so we'll see Kevster and Birdring at the start here, so maybe we see some Tracer Sombra looks from the Gladiators. And we've kind of been talking like about the negatives for both of these teams. The one positive, I think, for both of these squads is, well, look, you're not out of the playoff chase yet, right? You know, you're still obviously in the hunt. You still have a very good chance to make it. And both of these teams have talent that if it just clicks, they could win. Like, they legitimately have that type of talent where they could, like, run the table in the right meta if they figure it out. We can take a look at the Justice starting lineup, and you can